Welcome to the Beacon Way podcast, where your hosts, Jennifer Christensen and Adrian Wilkerson, talk shop about what really works in today's digital marketing world. As the co-founders of Beacon Media and Marketing, Jennifer and Adrian have been a part of digital marketing since its early stages in the mid-2000s. Tune in as they shine light on what works and what doesn't in the ever-changing world of digital marketing for small businesses.
Welcome back to the Beacon podcast. And I'm so excited to introduce Andy Pondillo. Double checked the pronunciation on that. So I met Andy at the Mental Health Marketing Conference, my favorite conference of the year, in case Steve is listening. But no, it really is my favorite conference of the year. And Andy did a great presentation on LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. So really excited to have you share with our audience and just some of your tips, tricks, and why you also are a LinkedIn fan, Andy. Welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here today. And I'm always happy to talk about LinkedIn tips, tricks, content, what stops people from rage scrolling, how to be fun professional, cool professional on LinkedIn. Like it's always a part of my daily conversation. So I'm excited to embark on this journey.
So before we get into some of the meat and the dense content that I know you can deliver, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing since the conference. You said you're working on a thankfulness series, a little reflective on maybe how you got here in your career. How did you get to the point where you're here now?
Definitely. The Mental Health Marketing Conference was really powerful for me. It was a new audience to be in front of. So in my consulting world in LinkedIn, I generally handle EDU, ed tech, a little bit of travel and tourism, some auto. So there's specific markets that I'll consult with. This was a new market for me, to see mental health marketing and how it all comes together. And that was really empowering to me from the sense of being able to see that connection that everybody has. But it was also empowering in the sense that I felt like people are very open there and willing to talk about experiences and what they're doing in their careers. And there was a lot of reflectiveness in that. Around Thanksgiving time, it's always a good time, I think, for giving thanks, reflectiveness. So I've been doing a little post series on my personal feed, talking about different people through different steps of my career that have helped me get from one spot to another, what I've learned from them, and what those lessons still are today. So an example that we worked with on the podcast that I host, The Making of a Marketer, we went through a person that I managed in the past and how the skills of how we were to learn different things through COVID during working remote. When it was an in-person job, we crash course working remotely. We crash course learning a new marketing vertical. We crash course learning LinkedIn together, and how all these dominoes start to play and how they show up today and our learnings and our collaborations, but they wouldn't have happened hadn't all these certain circumstances taken place. So I've been just doing a lot of thought about that. It's been a fun series to post, to write, to explore. Something that you and I both witnessed with Steve is very much Steve Turney, the president of the Mental Health Marketing Conference. He was so big into that, and it's been inspiring to me to continue that outside of the conference.
So he's one of my favorite people that I have met in this marketing journey. And I did see your LinkedIn post, by the way, and it actually inspired me to do something similar. So I'm working on a post right now. But I like the idea of even focusing on different people at different points of the journey. So I think I'm going to do multiple posts. I'll give you all the glory, though. I'll give you the inspirational credit. Yep. But back to Steve, marketing isn't always thought of as something where we share information and we're open with each other and we're more vulnerable. And that's definitely the values that Adrian and I have. That's part of what we wanted to do differently with Beacon. But meeting Steve was like, okay, here's somebody I can actually be myself with. I don't have to put on a fake competitive hat or not be open or whatever. So I'm grateful that he embodies that, because then I think the entire conference has that vibe.
It gets us out of talking about lowering your CPL by $20 and if you spend this much on Facebook, you'll make line return. I feel like there's been different eras of the marketing journey the mental health marketing conference, I feel like, is leading more of this let's be open discussion. But I do feel like we see it happening more in marketing now as we mature in this industry. We almost start to go back a little bit to talking about like emotion and branding and what all of that takes and like collaborating together. And I feel like there might have been a duration in time where there was so much money so quick in digital marketing that we started to lose that. So I feel like things go in cycles, but I really love that Steve leads us in the mental health perspective, but it also brings it back into the marketing world where we can utilize it in so many different ways.
Yeah, I love that perspective. So when we started out, we were the first inbound marketing agency in Alaska. And then when we expanded nationally, we kept that mindset. We were very aware of what was happening in the pay for play space as far as like you're talking about. And not that we don't do paid ads, because we do. But what we saw is we saw a lot of people like getting into digital marketing just to get rich quick. Mm-hmm. And they didn't really care about their clients, and they didn't really care about even what they were marketing. It was just like, I can make a lot of money doing that. You could just see it everywhere. Right? And when that whole change happened where you couldn't track the same way, and so many of those people went out of business. And I just remember Adrian and I like sigh of relief, like, hey, could we please get back to real messaging and branding and actually providing value for people? Could we stop with this like rich quick digital marketing thing? Because that stuff never lasts. It's like great for a minute, but then it never lasts.
And what I think of this through a couple lenses. So looking through it, let's like through it through Facebook. So Facebook digital marketing, the paid side, it really becomes big in 2015, 2016. We see it starting to take shape. By 2019, it's like everybody can get rich off Facebook, utilize this agency. It reminds me a lot of Walmart, because Walmart was really good in the 90s at mass expansion, turning products. Black Friday rolls around, like there's lines wrapping around the building for 12 hours straight. Right. They had this market, and it was just like boom. And then eventually it does hit a wall. iOS, of course, was the wall for Facebook. But we look at how Facebook now has started to evolve and started to get over the hump again. Same with Walmart. It hits a wall. Like what was in demand back then isn't in demand now. They found a way to keep it going. And Facebook, I think, has done the same. Think of Reels, like on Instagram, have gotten so popular now through a paid perspective. New product offerings. The Oculus was kind of a hit for them once they got into the VR space, Meta as a whole. But I think about that, and there's these different eras that take place. I made a joke about this in digital marketing. I did my own eras tour of my career, giving a good Taylor Swift reference. But I think we're entering different eras of social media and digital media marketing. And it's really up to, it doesn't matter if it's Facebook, it doesn't matter if it's an agency, it doesn't matter if it's me. All of us are trying to figure out what these eras are and how we can be resourceful and maximize the potential. But I always feel like that human element, in keeping that in play, it transfers across a lot of these eras pretty naturally if we're able to utilize that and adapt to it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that it's like you have to have your foundation solid, and then, you're always going with a bright, shiny object. You might lose your core. But if your core is really strong, then you can add on and take away those pieces. I mean, that's what we've been telling our clients a lot over the last even 3 to 4 years, is that, we will always maximize where the best value is, whether it's, I don't really care if it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever I'm going to get the best return for the client, I'll maximize that. But the core is they have to build their own client base, right? They need to build their own marketing so that clients come to them directly. You don't want to be beholden to whatever change is happening out there, which is happening all the time.
And there's always going to be new changes, no matter what you do.
Always. Yeah, it makes our jobs interesting, right? So tell me how you became a fan of LinkedIn. How did you get into it? I loved your talk on it. I think you did a really great job. Are you mainly focused on LinkedIn, or was that just what you were talking about at the conference?
So that's what I mostly focus on now, but I'd be remiss if I didn't follow other platforms. Right. So since a lot of my video technique that I teach originates from TikTok, because I feel like the video style in TikTok is the style that has translated across other platforms. But I feel like if there's such thing as being a historian of social media, can you be, I don't know if that's like possible, but if there is such a thing, that's what I try to be, because we've seen so many different trends pop up, and social media is a copycat league. So they tend to show up everywhere. Working at LinkedIn now and doing consulting with them, we primarily focus on the channel. We try to do creative best practices, like leading you through what a marketing funnel would be. But my original experiences, much like a lot of us in social media, revolve around Facebook, Instagram. It was several jobs ago, I worked at Space Center Houston when I lived in Houston, Texas. It's a museum for historical space travel, rockets, spaceships, artifacts, really cool place, tourism-based styled marketing. But we also had a lot of business partnerships. So I started doing a little bit of LinkedIn there, where I was like, hey, if we're going to do B2B strategy, like LinkedIn's the place for it. Like, I'm the same way that I want to run the platform that can maximize potential. And each of these platforms have their pros and cons. LinkedIn, obviously, B2B is the major pro. So I did that. I took it to another job. I worked for an agency. We were highly involved with higher education, which LinkedIn is a very popular platform for. Yep. I took the job. I was about to start, and then it was the week that the whole world shut down for COVID is when the job started. So we had to learn a new vertical because I hadn't delved into higher education that much, learn a new location because I moved across the country, and then also had to really learn LinkedIn, which wasn't a new platform, but the level we were doing it and the expectation from our clients made it more heightened than where, done it before. So I like to say that I learned LinkedIn during COVID, and everyone has their COVID stories. The two things I did during COVID was I sat at home, learned LinkedIn, and I watched every episode of Love Island on Hulu that's ever existed. So
really good.
It's great. So it's every dating reality show that's ever existed put into one, and you remove all the filters because you're able to get away with a little bit more in the UK and Australia than you can in the US. It's wonderful. Wrong reasons. So I did that. I learned LinkedIn, just a lot of reps. It was a lot of practice, posting to my personal feed. I was trying different things there so I could learn it on my personal feed and then translate that into the ads. So about a year of doing that, worked for another agency after that where I primarily focused at LinkedIn. I built their B2B program, and unfortunately now work at LinkedIn. So kind of about marketing and your journey and how you get from A to Z. But I really like to say I learned LinkedIn during the pandemic, and it was a good time to learn LinkedIn because that's where we saw this platform, I feel like, really go from, it's interesting professional platform to like it's kind of cool now, and earned it right at the right time.
I think I actually had like this weird love of LinkedIn even in the very beginning, like before it was popular. I don't know if you've heard of Vivica von Rosen, but she was like the original like LinkedIn marketer, and we had her come up to our conference, and I just fell in love with her. Like, she's one of my favorite people, and so I think that probably had an effect on it. But, she would just like kind of behind the scenes tips and tricks and things like that. So I liked it even back then. But it seemed to me like when Microsoft bought it was when they actually started investing in it to really be like a true social platform. Would you say that's correct? Is that
yes? I definitely agree, because you feel like you look at LinkedIn prior to 2016, you probably in your brain have them lumped in with Indeed and Monster. So you have them lumped in as job sites and kind of post statuses, but very low usage. Not a lot of people were doing it. They didn't have like the ads and all of that. So it was interesting to see how after Microsoft took it, they kind of made the idea of having a timeline, but a professional timeline, having like self-shot videos and cool organic content, and being able to marry that all together with also being able to look for jobs. So it creates this network where you organically are able to connect and talk and do things and be in like live events, like things that were never possible before, all in one platform. So I do think it really exists kind of in the world a little bit, that's almost untapped. And that's what keeps LinkedIn successful under this Microsoft umbrella, is that though social media is a copycat league, you see some of the same stuff popping up from each channel. They do really have their own kind of world that they live in. So I can look back at all these other channels and I think about, what's made them successful. Like Facebook came around, they lived a little bit in MySpace's world, but they advanced it like 1,000%. Am has always been its own thing. TikTok's been its own thing. Or X, formerly known as Twitter, is kind of its own thing, though there's been some new attempts at it. But all these, when they took off and got mainstream success, they were innovative and they kind of rolled their own audience and own, demos. So I think LinkedIn's been real successful at being able to do that.
Yeah, love that. So for those listening that are just like, okay, I know I need to be on LinkedIn. I don't know what to do, like consulting for people where you just kind of walk them through maybe like here the first steps or the things that you really need to focus on.
It's all client-based right now on my day-to-day, but I will say this. You can always message me on LinkedIn. I will almost always respond every message that hits my inbox. So if you have a question like of how to optimize your profile, like what headlines should I use or what types of content works, or is this ad that I'm running on LinkedIn, does it meet like creative best practices? Just ask me. Like it's, the consulting work that I do, we some large things like we'll get like a company's marketing team in there and like we'll go to the whiteboard and like really kind of through a macro strategy and maybe start from scratch, or we'll take all their ads and like message worked here, but you used your B color scheme and it didn't work here. Like let's just tweak this and like format how we're visualizing how we're working through a funnel. So we do some of that stuff at the higher end, but I like to, my personal presence on LinkedIn, I like to always be available and happy to help.
That's awesome. So you're doing like even just like testing and like that works even like, is this like this message versus that message? Mm-hmm. This color. Okay. Got it. Okay. So that's the type of like kind of level work you're doing to see what's resonating.
And I can usually find something. So let's say lead gen, for instance. I know in your world, lead gen, conversion rates, return on investment, it's very popular. So I might look through like over a historical period of time, let's say 25 ads. I can almost always find consistencies in what's worked and what's not worked and why. Like in almost every time I find it, it relates to immediacy. So media is a bunch of people like myself just rage swiping through feeds and seeing what they stop on. That's the truth of how it's viewed. Right. So greatest Disney production, the greatest copy, the greatest CTA, none of it works unless you can stop the scroll. So more times than not, I'm able to figure out potentially why something is stopping. And usually it's because there's some sort of immediate attention getter or some immediate action that's created by the post or ad. So that's typically what I go in and look for, is what would create immediacy for me to get in there. And then if I find that, hey, something is working a lot better than the others, how do we duplicate that type of strategy across different messages, different offers, different creative sets? Because I think just nailing that learning is the first step to, get dominoes to fall.
Yeah, no, I love that. So we don't have a whole bunch of time left, but I guess I want to end with thankfulness, because this is I myself in a really reflective time in my whole career right now as well. So when you're going through your journey, are you looking at people that you feel like really pushed your career in marketing, or people that really encouraged you to kind of keep going? I mean, was there somebody in the beginning that really made an impact?
Definitely. So that would be my boss when I worked in radio. So long story short, my career originates in radio and broadcast and then merged into the social media world. So I got into it pretty early. It was 2014. It's 2013, we started kicking the tires. 2014 is when I took it on more as a job. I was a producer for a series of radio stations, and I honestly felt like my career as a radio host was flaming out. Just the industry. It was tough for me to find substantial work. I was bouncing from part-time roles. I had someone in the organization that said that, hey, Andy, we think you're, when it comes to the social media stuff, just seeing that, hey, I kind of like, would you be interested in posting for our pages? So our radio stations, like putting updates and things like that. During that time, I didn't get paid for doing the extra work, but I said, sure, I had to do it because it was something that was passionate to me in my career. And I've also in my career, I always tried to stay open-minded when learning skills because things change too quick. Tomorrow, iOS 14 could happen. The day a recession could be looming. The next day, a pandemic could be happening. Like, there's so many things that take place that change the way we have to navigate. So my boss, Brandon, gave me that opportunity to start doing that. I was successful at it. We started to merge it into more of a 50-50 role. It eventually became a full-time role. Eventually, I ended up loving just the social media and digital industry to the point I was ready to repivot my entire career. And I did repivot my entire career in 2016, where I left radio, started working at marketing agencies, and I went back to basically an entry-level position in 2016. So it's crazy for me to say that I took that risk in 2016 to sit here in 2023 to see, mental health marketing conference. Like, that is like would not have even remotely been a reality 7 years ago. So only starts though when somebody's able to give you that chance. So that was really the first chance I would say I had. And then along the lines, this thing's been a roller coaster. There's just been so many things that have happened, and we've rode the roller coaster. And there's so many people that, like, I couldn't even begin to name them all that have been impactful in my career. I've been, small teams, where thankful because I was able to learn from, generations that came in with this paid social media expertise. I was able to kind of back engineer it and learn from them. And right now, I was a LinkedIn customer for a few years. So learning from their sales teams and learning about their culture and their values, it made it so that could be something I could do one day. So many times where I've had people that have been impactful, and to get to this point in, our careers, you can't do it alone. So no matter what hat you have, I think you need others to really support that journey. So there's been a ton, and like I said, I've been posting about them on my feed lately because it's just a good reflective time to think about that.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, thanks for inspiring me to do the same. It's really love what you said about the younger generations, because I got into marketing late. So I was I was sales, corporate, that whole world for many, many, many years. And I actually I don't want to say look down on marketing, but it didn't appeal to me because it didn't have measurable goals that I could see. So, I starters come and go, and it was like, they would kind of put attitude things on, but I'm like, in sales, it's all about the numbers. It's all about like what actually works. And so it wasn't until digital marketing started coming about that I was like, oh, this is really interesting. This is something that not only goes with sales, but I can see it actually replacing sales, which I believe in many ways it has, right? The consumer behavior has changed. They don't want to talk to a salesperson. But early in my career, as far as launching Beacon, we had a couple staff members that, I was with them as much as they were learning from me. And I love that back and forth. I feel like in this industry, there's just things that people are going to have different perspectives in different generations too.
And it's important that we each highlight our perspectives. So you having a sales background is very impactful for the role that you have at Beacon, because you're able to see things from that, ROI, that, metrics lens that sometimes from marketers, like with me, if you let me just go crazy, like I'll go start like a marketing reality show. And I was talking on my last podcast about Marketing Island and this great idea I have. Like sometimes we need sales to like rein us a little bit because, we have all great ideas, but how do we measure it? Like what is successful right now? But vice versa. I think it's important when sales teams are able to learn from creators, from marketers, like how they can re-envision what their messaging is and make it work for certain audiences. Who I've learned a lot from, even though I don't work with a lot of them, it's been more, partnerships and different initiatives. It's been influencers. a lot of my social media game and what I recommend on LinkedIn derives from early tactics that influencers were mastering. Vertical short form video, putting captions so you can read and mute, do like quick frames, like going from frame to frame to showing a lot of action. Start with brand and human build up like television commercials used to do. Like in TV and broadcast, we learned that you want people to hold all the way through 30 seconds. Influencer strategy hooks somebody within 2 seconds. So I've been able to like reverse engineer a lot of these tactics by learning from people in the industry. And I think that's always keeping an open mind in knowing that there's so many layers of marketing and so many philosophies. Even if all 30 of them don't work for you, I'm sure there's something you can pull from each of them that you might be able to reconfigure and make work for your company or your platform.
Yeah, I love that. That's such real talk, because often I feel like some of the people I've talked to that have owned agencies for a long time, or maybe they've been in the marketing world for a long time, and will bring forward tactics and ideas that are very, what I would call grassroots, right? Because you're learning from the people that are actually getting the most attention now. It's not usually from the top down. It's usually the influencers up, right? Affect it because it's maybe not like overall in their history what works in marketing, but you have to be open. Like if consumer behavior is changing, if people are reacting differently, you cannot just use the things that worked before. In fact, it won't work long term.
And that's something that's repeated history. So there was a time where Facebook was just for young people, Instagram was just for young people. And then I had the same conversation when I was working on marketing teams, both agency and in-house. I was trying to get on the TikTok train really early. Like I was trying to brands before it was even mainstream. I was like, I would run your videos on this thing. There is no other platform right now that is giving the organic reach that this has. I started seeing some of the numbers and I was like, this is bang for your buck to the extremist level. And, we were hearing things again. It was only for young people. Despite the data showing us that 35 to 45 or 34 to 45 is their growing age demographic. So those things that you have to try to stay ahead. But I think of it almost from a media buying perspective. So you're in an account, you have a budget. I would always like to say that I want 5 to 10% test budget. If I'm operating a business and I have, my entire marketing budget set up, I should always have some flexibility to where I can test a little bit and try things, because if I don't have that, I never know what's going to work or not work. So if I can find something within that test budget that I've established as being successful, then the next year I can move that into more of a high priority item. And I would always do that with media buying, but I think it works across like B2B and B2C strategy as well, allowing yourself to have that test. So that allows me to test new platforms or new strategies or grassroots items as well. If I put that in there and I still allow myself to be profitable with the other 90%.
I think that's one of the things I love about digital marketing. And there's a lot of things that are challenging, right? How much it changes and all. But one of the things I love is that you can test and it gives you the information back. So like when, back in the day, it was like the television commercial or even radio or print ads. I mean, you wouldn't know for months.
Yep.
And maybe like you think that might have worked, but I really am not sure. And now it's like people are going to tell you almost immediately what's working, what's not, what they're responding to. So,
and to phrase this up, so a company might do back in the days, they might test a billboard off a certain interstate. And I used to hear the word test. They want to see if this location will work. To run that test, to put a billboard up, like in traditional marketing in a while, but I want to say like you're at like $20,000, like just to get into the game, like barely get it. So if I did that on digital and I was like, hey, you're willing this type of test, it should mean you're willing to test other platforms. I used to call it the $30 a day test. $30 a day on a new strategy, on a new platform for a new audience. That's about $900 a month. Like, I think every company, big or small, usually can afford that style of a test.
Yeah.
And then after that 30 days, you make your decision. You know, you made it, hey, our numbers, like you said, they came in looking really successful. It'll probably scale over the course of time. You can start raising that. Or if it didn't work, you know, you can plug on it. You know, that's $9 you lost. But hey, you know, there is a lot of expensive tests out there where companies lose a lot more money trying things. So I don't think it's like a huge harm, you know, huge harm at all to give that a try.
No, I love that. Well, we are out of time, and I have enjoyed so much talking to you. I feel like you gave some great information, and we definitely are aligned on I think, philosophy marketing for sure. Definitely. So where can people find you? I think it's mainly LinkedIn, your personal profile. Is that where you want them to go?
Yeah, come find me on LinkedIn, Andy Pondillo. I'm the only one that exists, so you'll find me on there. That's where I'm posting different tips, tricks, you know, reflect on career, talk about a lot of different things on there. I've challenged myself to post a lot more. Also, my podcast, The Making of a Marketer, you know, we talk about a lot of this stuff on there. It's very guest driven. So there's actually a new episode that hit just this week. So happy to see you in both of those locations.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Beacon Way. We hope you enjoyed it and had some good takeaways. Please subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And if you've enjoyed the show, please give us some stars on your podcast channel of choice. For more information, tips, and notes from the show, check us out at beaconmm.com. For more information on how Beacon can help market your business, email us at welcome@beaconmm.com.